All right, let's get right into it. We're looking at a huge confrontation that's really shaking the foundations of the world's largest democracy. This is a story all about trust, some pretty serious allegations, and the integrity of the vote itself.
And it all kicks off with these two words. Just two words. But this phrase has been chanted, put on signs, and has lit an absolute firestorm right across India.
So, what does vote Chori actually mean here? Well, it literally translates to vote theft. But in this whole debate, it's being used to claim something much, much bigger. We're talking about a systemic, on-purpose manipulation of the entire election process. You kind of have to get why that phrase is so explosive to understand what's going on. Okay, so let's start with the accusations that really kicked this whole thing into high gear. This was a public campaign led by opposition leader Rahul Gandhi, and it was aimed squarely at India's Elections Commission. You know, this didn't just pop up overnight. It started with a really specific claim back on August 7th, focused on just one area in Karnataka. But boy, it did not stay local for long. It pretty quickly grew into a public march, the Voter Rights March. And from there, it just exploded into claims across multiple states, even calling the results of the recent general election into question. And this is where it gets really interesting. This wasn't just some vague complaint about fraud. The accusations got into the nitty-gritty, pointing to very specific methods. Things like duplicate names on the voting lists, totally fake addresses, huge bulk registrations, and even the misuse of an official document, Form 6. And the scale of that very first claim, wow, it was huge. The allegation was that over one lock, that's 100,000 votes, were compromised in just one constituency. A number that big, you can bet it's going to make people sit up and pay attention. And if you thought 100,000 was a lot, well, this just shows how fast things ballooned. The claim went from one lock votes in Karnataka to 1 crore. That's 10 million so-called mystery voters in the state of Maharashtra. Suddenly, this wasn't a local story anymore. It was a massive national issue.
And this right here, this brings us to the absolute core of the accusation. The claim wasn't about random clerical errors. No, it was that a specific official government process, the Special Intensive Revision of Voter Rolls, or SIR, was being deliberately used as an institutionalized way to steal votes. That's a direct shot at the system itself. So, you've heard the charges. Let's flip the coin and see how the Election Commission of India, the ECI, the constitutional body that runs the country's elections, how they fired back.
Their response was fast and it was tough. They didn't just deny everything. They took huge issue with the language being used. They basically said that calling it vote Chori was derogatory and that it was an attack not just on them, but on the Indian Constitution. And this just lays it all out, right? You've got two completely opposite stories about the exact same process. One side says the voter roll revision is a tool for fraud. The other side, the ECI, says no way. This is a necessary constitutional thing we do to make sure the rolls are clean and the election is fair for everybody. Two sides, one process, zero agreement. Then things got really direct. The head of the Election Commission basically drew a line in the sand and issued a public ultimatum. He said, okay, you have 7 days to submit a sworn legal document with actual proof, or you need to apologize to the entire nation. Talk about high stakes. So, with the political opposition and the electoral body in a total stalemate, where could this possibly go next? Well, in India, it went to the highest court in the land, the Supreme Court. And with that, a whole new player entered the game, and the focus started to shift. And what the Supreme Court did here was so interesting. They didn't jump in and say who was right or wrong. Instead, their orders were all about one thing: transparency. They told the ECI to publish everything: the full list of all 6.5 million voters who were deleted, the exact reason for every single deletion, right down to the local polling booth, and to set up a clear way for any citizen to challenge those decisions. Which brings us to where things are right now. We're left with this tense standoff, and it's not just between a political party and a government body. It's really a standoff over the very idea of trust in the democratic process. So, just to sum it all up, on one side, you have the opposition, led by Rahul Gandhi, saying there's systemic fraud. In the middle, you have the Election Commission, defending its honor and demanding proof or an apology. And then you have the Supreme Court, kind of playing referee, saying the path forward is through total transparency. And when you boil it all down, this whole thing becomes about something much bigger than a political fight.
it leaves us with a really tough, fundamental question for any democracy. When the politicians and the very institution that's supposed to guarantee a fair election are at war, where do ordinary people turn for trust? That's the question at the very heart of this entire debate.